All right, we're ready.
.357 Productions is proud to present the Masonian, a monthly podcast for Freemasons with a focus on the Grand Jurisdiction of North Carolina. While not an official function of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, we operate with the full endorsement of Grand Master Gene Cobb. The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants and in no way reflect the opinions of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, its members, or any appendant bodies. 357 Productions does own this music, so we play it when we want and how we want.
Dang right.
So we're super excited today. We've got the most worshipful, illustrious, Reverend Dr. A. Gene Cobb Jr., the Grand Master of Masons of North Carolina.
I'm sorry I didn't catch all that. Can you say that one more time?
Whew, that's a mouthful.
It's too much.
Man, Grand Master, we are glad to have you here, sir.
Delighted to be with you, Ben, and Riley and Sean. Just happy to be back in Montgomery County.
The timing of this thing worked out today. I don't know if all our listeners know this or not, but the Grand Master keeps a pretty doggone busy schedule.
Unbelievable.
So it was very difficult to get him scheduled in. So we're kind of doing it here in mid-afternoon, which is unusual for us. And because of that, the tractor shed crew did not get to cook. But I promise you this, when you get through the Grand East and you get things settled down a little bit, you're only an hour away. You come back up here and we will cook for y'all.
I will hold you to that, Ben. I will hold you to that.
And we'll see if we can't. We'll just do it with no agenda whatsoever and no masonry, and you can just come up here and eat and have a good time.
Let's have a good time.
All right. Well, we've all had a crazy day. We're running behind, and we're just going to dive right into it. So the Grand Master, there's a ton of things I want to ask him, but here's the most important thing that we're going to talk about. Usually I try to keep the most important stuff for the end, but I thought we'd start with the most important thing, and that is you have to say some really nice things about William Baldwin Bruton. Bill is, he's been such a mentor to me. I know he probably has been a great mentor to you. We don't know what we would do without him. I mean, he's the only thing that keeps, maybe Blackmer afloat and keeps us all interested and stuff. And I'm always singing his praises and talking about how much he means to just really the whole world in general. I'd like to give you an opportunity to get in on some of that praise, boss.
Well, I will say this about Bill. Obviously, he's special to me because I selected him as a Grand Tyler. Bill and I had the same coach, Ken Fritz, at Blackmer 127 in Mount Gilead, which I'm a very proud member of. And Bill was my junior warden when I was master at Blackmer. And we go way back. We go back to each of our very beginnings in Masonry. We're brothers in the truest sense of the word. I don't want to get sentimental because I would mess up all my picking on him that I love to do. Mm-hmm. But Bill's a dear friend, and will be that always. My whole family looks to Bill and thinks the world of him. And I better stop right there because I might get a little choked up if I keep going. And he can't know about that. That's not fair.
And he's a Methodist.
Yes, he is a Methodist. I was his pastor.
He's just hitting all the targets.
Yeah, and his mother was a member of the church there too. And sweet, sweet Lady Mary was just a darling.
Okay, Bill, you make sure you get that check to me next week.
Better be a big one.
Better be a big one. No, he really is a good dude.
Yeah.
So Blackmer, so I want to talk about a lot of Grand Master kind of stuff, but why don't you tell us just a little bit about how you got into the lodge? And I normally wouldn't be doing this, but since the lodge that you got into was Blackmer, I thought we'd throw one to the home team and just kind of talk about what it is being a preacher in a small town and then getting in a small town lodge and then how that launched you.
Well, the story is that I wanted to schedule. I was pastor of First Methodist Church there in Mount Gilead, and I wanted to schedule a meeting out at the Zion Church for a church council meeting. Well, J.C. Robbins was the church council chair, and Stimson McCrae was, I think, the lay leader at that time. So I asked J.C., when can we have a council meeting? And he said, when you want to have it. I said, well, how about first Tuesday? He said, can't do it. I said, why not? He said, got Masonic Lodge meeting. I said, okay, well, how about third Tuesday? He said, "Can't do it." And I said, "Well, why not?" And he said, "Got Masonic Lodge meeting." I said, I was about 34 years old at the time. I said, "Doggone you Masons." I said, "I have always wanted to be a member of the lodge, and none of you have ever asked me." And he got this goober-looking grin on his face and said, "And none of us ever will." And I thought, wait a minute. I said, "JC, are you saying I've got to ask?" And he just kind of like Goober went, "I got a petition right out of my truck." And he went running out, and he brought me the petition, and 3 months later, I was a Master Mason. So had it not been for that encounter there in First Methodist Church in Mount Gilead, I wouldn't be sitting here where I am today.
You know, none of our lodges are perfect. You know, even Blackmer, I hate to admit, it's not perfect. But there's just something about the place that you were raised. I'm in 3 lodges now, you know, do some stuff with, you know, a bunch of stuff in Masonry, all sort of appendant bodies. But there's just something about that crew that raised you that will always stick with you. It's up there. I like to always say that it's up there with like birthing babies and getting married. I mean, it's a life-changing event when especially if it's done moderately right.
Yeah. There were some really great guys back then. Jimmy Haithcock did my lectures. Of course, my coach, Ken Fritz, did the 1st and 3rd degree lectures. Stimson McCrae, who raised me. Just really, really good folks. People I will cherish all my life and be grateful for.
Cool. All right. Have you put a few miles on this year, boss?
A few 10,000, a little more than 10. A lot of air miles, a lot of driving miles, but every one of them worth it.
So you're pretty lucky because you live in the middle of the state, because at least you got a good jumping off point. Some, you know, like Grandmaster Webster and the guys that live on the ends of the state. I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how Bryant did. Bryant was fortunate. His father lived in Durham, so he could cut some of his drive time down when he was going back and forward eastern part of the state. But I'm very fortunate. I can usually get to just about everywhere in 4 hours, except the far corners of the west. It's a little bit longer getting out there.
About that. Beth Grace is one of our very favorite people here, and because she continues to give us press, I continue to give her press. That's some sort of quid pro quo thing we have going on there. Talk just a little bit about Beth and kind of what Beth has meant to the lodge.
Well, I think she is one of the most exciting parts of who we are as Masons in North Carolina. Even though she's not a Mason, she's a real good wannabe. And I'll tell you, the articles that she's been able to do have been able to make your Grand Master look a whole lot better than he really is. The lodges and the things that she's covered around the state, they all look great. But Beth has a really good way of being able to present us with our best foot forward and our best side showing. And we're just eternally grateful to her and to the North Carolina Masonic Foundation for how they came on board and worked with the Grand Lodge to make sure we got a first-rate person to be handling the communications of the Grand Lodge. Had it not been for that, we would, I don't know. We had some good candidates for that position, but we had the best opportunities to make the right hire at this time, and I can't say enough good about Mike Falkenberry and all those guys on the North Carolina Masonic Foundation for making that happen for us.
Amen. She's phenomenal. We really love her. I just think she's Masonry just keeps getting better and better in North Carolina. We got such good leadership, and she just is one more really good thing to throw in the stew pot and make it even richer and better. So we love her. How's Lion and Pillar going?
Lion and Pillar's going great. We've had 81 lodges that put in an application. 55 will receive the recognition as a Lion and Pillar Lodge of Excellence. Those certificates are being prepared now and will be ready for delivery at the annual communication. We're pretty excited about that. And 55 met all of the requirements, and 26, whatever the difference is, that will be recognized for honorable mention. Didn't quite complete all of the requirements, but came pretty close. And we're glad they tried, and hope there'll be even more next year.
Yeah, and I know you appreciate Tony running the interference on that thing. What happens if you get it next year? Is it like a sticker like the VMAP thing?
I'm not sure. We haven't. The incoming officers haven't decided all of that. I will say that each award this year is a numbered award. So on the certificate, as each one completed the requirements, there's a section on there that has like, this is number 1, this is number 2. I mean, every certificate is unique this year. Now, what they're going to do next year, there'll be some requirement changes. I don't know if it's going to be $3 per member per charity next year. It may be 5, maybe 10. I don't know. But that's going to be up to the incoming Grand Masters over the course of the year. But I do hope that over time we will continue to emphasize things like education, which, by the way, you've done an outstanding job chairing that for us.
Oh, stop
Ben.
it, boss.
No, I'm not kidding. I appreciate you doing it. And you've done a great job. But education, philanthropy, patriotism, Masonic membership, and getting out there in our communities and being seen and heard and understood that we're a part of a community in a really good way. All of that. There's some great things I know that's in the works for future Grand Masters that I'm looking forward to see how that all unfolds.
You know, speaking of the community, I wanted to talk just a little bit about Lynchburg and the things that have happened there in the last month. I think if you're any kind of a, this is our show, we can talk about what we want, I guess. If you're any kind of a Christian, and if you really take the tenets of Masonry to heart, which are two separate things but teach kind of the same thing, you had to look on that whole situation in Lynchburg with almost to me it was almost confusing, because it seems like it was two real radical different sides, and most of us are just living here in middle America trying to, get up and go to work every day and pay our bills and love our neighbors, and just can't really understand the hostility on both sides. But as Masons, so just to bring it back to a Masonic sense, as Masons, what should we make of that, and what can we do to make it better?
Well, the most important thing that Masons can do is to remember those 3 most important things about who we are. We're about friendship, we're about morality, and we're about brotherly love. And one of the biggest mistakes I think that we make is sometimes we let our fanatical opinions get in the way of what we know is really who we are. We're friends. We're engaged in morality, and we're all about brotherly love. And finding common ground and loving one another, that's what the Supreme Architect of the universe has in mind as his will and pleasure for us as Masons. But as human beings, I remember being told as a boy many times, you catch more flies with sugar than you do with vinegar. And if you're gonna be a loving human being, then you're gonna find ways to work together, and highlighting your things that you're different about, and not celebrating how we are all a human being is always going to lead to conflict if we're not careful.
Had a lot of interesting conversations. There's been a lot of stuff going on around the internet, and just some conversations with friends about where is a Mason's duty when it comes to situations like this, and you want to on one hand just hope it'll all go away. I'm doing the right thing in my life, I feel like, most of the time, and I just want all that craziness to go away. But where do we have a duty to at least talk about it? Or maybe we've talked about getting together with our Prince Hall brothers, and I talked to a couple of lodges about maybe trying to do a joint thing with the lodge to show that grown-ups can get together and love each other and get along. So where do you draw that line between action and just living by the side of the road? I don't know.
I think every Mason has to wrestle with their duty to God, our duty to our country, our duty to our neighbors, and our duty to ourselves. And that's going to be different for everybody. But what isn't going to be different is the fact that we need to have respect and love for one another, and understand that one person's experience may not be the same thing as another person's experience. But the beautiful, beautiful piece of this is that God can work. God can work with all of those differences. And, you know, we may not agree on different issues, but if your heart is as my heart, and we're about friendship, morality, and brotherly love, then we as Masons know, give me your hand. Yeah. And if we do that, well, you know what happens when we do it. Oh, it's a secret. We can't say that.
Riley, what do you think about all this?
It is. It's been distressing. I will say, Grandmaster, I thought that your response on social media to all the lodges and both on social media was spot on. That was a great remark. The whole statement itself, and I thought it was really, really good. And I appreciate you doing that. And it said a lot about what we're doing. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Riley. I think that the more we can say the things that we really believe and the things that we really practice, and the more that we can stop trying to hide what we do. My greatest master of all said one time, why do you light a candle and put it under a basket? You set it up so everybody can see. So if we can let everybody see a better side of the world, a better side of life, a better side of what a man is as Masons, yes, then I think the world can be a better place, and maybe we can actually help some folks through some of these very difficult and trying circumstances, like the situation in Charlottesville and that sort of thing.
So to that end, has there been any conversation with our Prince Hall brothers about maybe trying to do something jointly? I know we've had conversations at the local level, but
yeah, I've reached out to Grandmaster Fitch. As you know, he keeps quite the busy schedule as well, and I know that in our meeting with the state legislators back in June, I talked to Deputy Grandmaster D.T. Thompson. And, we're looking at ways that we can, we're coming up on the 10th year anniversary of the recognition of Prince Hall. Oh. And one of the things that Right Worshipful DT and I talked about were things that we might be thinking about doing to commemorate and to celebrate that anniversary, and where we go from here. So we want to keep promoting the good relationship with our Prince Hall brothers, and respectful of both their code and our code, and how we can make that work together for good in North Carolina.
I think it's the best thing. The way that we could be most visible is to do stuff jointly with those guys at a time when our country really needs it, with the exception of churches, which is a pretty segregated time of the week in some areas, and in some areas not so much. Then we're probably the next best set up folks, I feel like, to be able to reach across the aisle and really do things jointly and just show some unity and some real brotherhood and fellowship. I don't know how to do it. Just the things that I've tried locally don't seem to be quite working out. Mainly, I don't know. Maybe I just haven't given it enough time. But I would love to see you guys push that. It's me telling the Grandmaster what to do. Y'all do whatever you want, boss. But I think there's an opportunity there.
There is, and I'm convinced that that the leadership in Prince Hall, and I know in our Grand Line, wants the best for all in this, and we're committed to that.
How do you so for your day job? For everybody that doesn't know, the Grandmaster is he's the preacher at a very large Methodist church. How has that worked out I guess my question is, talk about how you mesh the two together. I know to some degree you have to keep them separate, but there's got to be some crossover in some common belief system and ethics and morality, and talk about that a little bit.
Well, there is, from a very practical position, I have an outstanding staff. In fact, my associate pastor was raised as a Master Mason in Sanford at Buffalo 172, and is not too bad a Mason. In fact, I think he just went through the class of Scottish Rite up in Greensboro, and he's practicing what he preaches, both as a Mason and as a minister. I've got a great support staff with people like Lisa Wilson, our church financial administrator, and Laura Alverson, our secretary, and Kim Philpott, our church music director. Judy Dry, who used to be your pastor.
Love Judy Dry.
She's our minister of visitation. I've got just a great group of lay people who have been understanding and who have been supportive. And the really good thing about it is, and I had no idea with less than 100 days to go, I've been able to fit everything in and not have to take any time off excessively, using days off and vacation that I've got. So we've all worked together very well as a team at St. Luke, and I'm biased. I think it's the best church around, but I've got a really good group of folks there that have worked with me and have been very supportive throughout this year. Well, actually throughout these 9 years, because I've been there the whole time I've been in the line. I've been at St. Luke, and they've been very good up to this point.
Well, we'll let you have them back after, or they'll let them have you back after this thing is over with. It's coming down to an end. We were talking a little bit earlier, and I was asking the Grand Master if, he felt like he was almost to the end and was looking forward to it, and and he kind of flipped it. Tell us what you said, boss, about really only having so many days left to get it done.
I made a comment, I believe, to you that I've got 95 more days left, and some people may interpret that as, he's counting down the days. When I was a student at Carolina, one of the things that I did was I was a statistician for Coach Smith and the varsity basketball team, and we would go to practice and do things, and of course games, obviously. And Coach Smith, as most folks will remember, was a master at working the clock. So I'm making that statement about 95 more days, in that whatever I've got to get done, I know I'm mindful of the clock. And I'm mindful of how much longer I have to get things done, and then start making the transition to the next Grand Master, so that everything continues to run as well and as they can for North Carolina, and more importantly, that it's a victory for our Grand Lodge.
Amen. Would you like to say some nice things about your line officers?
I don't think you've got enough airtime to be able to cover all of that. Speed Holman has been an outstanding deputy, being thrust into this position a year earlier than he would have had to do, and of course with the departure of Jimmy Hicks from the line, and then Max Sigmund and Sean Bradshaw and David Wicker having to step in so much sooner. They have been phenomenal resources, and continue each and every day to be in conversation over the phone, through email, through text messages. I don't think there's been a day this year that's one or more of them and I have not had some kind of a very relevant conversation about things that needed to happen to help the Grand Lodge along. And of course, I don't mean to leave out anybody. Larry and Kevin and Don Kaler and Bobby Rideout have been phenomenal, as well as the Grand Secretary Walt Clapp and Jonathan Underwood. And while I'm on Raleigh, And I hope everybody in North Carolina hears my heart on this. But Cornelia Doherty and Haley Mole and Vicki Lamb are some of the finest people that I have ever worked with in my life. And this Grand Lodge is so blessed to have them. I could not have done what I've done this year. I mean that. I could not have done that without their help. And I hope that everybody who gets to see them, whatever chance they get, I hope they'll tell them thank you and just let them know how much they appreciate it, because I know what they've done for me, and I can only imagine that they've done the same thing for every Grand Master, and we're all most grateful for it.
All right. Shout out to the girls.
That's it.
You want to say, before we dive into the amendments, you want to say anything about Scottish Rite? Greensboro Scottish Rite specifically, or anything?
Well, I don't want to create any animosity.
Go ahead. That's what we do here.
I know that's what you do here, but I do think our Greensboro Scottish Rite is outstanding. We've got a team that is preparing now to do the 33rd degree. We just got back from the Supreme Council meeting in Washington, D.C. We've been a VMAP award winner for 2 years in a row, and Ben, you did help lead that. You had 11 co-chairs with you on the various areas, but you helped get us across the line on that. We're very grateful for that. We've made a lot of good progress in Greensboro, and as you and I were talking earlier, I think we've got a lot more to go, and I'm looking forward to how that's going to transpire over the course of the next 10 or 12 months.
Cool. We have annual communication coming up pretty soon.
Yep.
A month and a half, something like that. Mm-hmm. So what are we going to see? Not just the amendments. What before we talk about the amendments, what's going on just schedule-wise? Anything different than normal?
Well, there's several things that are going to be a little different. We're going to open sort of like the Grand Lodge of Ontario, which is going to be a little bit different. I'll just say we're going to get all of the dignitaries in and introduced in record time.
All right.
That
was my favorite part, getting to hear them announced forever.
They'll still have their names announced, but it's going to be done just a little bit differently. I'll be receiving checks and presentations from lodges, not as part of the meeting, but as part of the reception that's going to take place on Friday. And one of the reasons, I don't want to embarrass anybody by saying this, and if I do, I'm going to apologize up front. But sometimes people bring checks for the children's home, but not for Whitestone. And I think it's great that they bring a check for whatever, because our charitable work is important. But those photo opportunities are going to happen off stage after we close the session, as well as the line and pillar presentations are going to be made that same way. We'll put them up on the screen, let everybody see who it was, but we'll get photo ops. That way whoever wants to get in it can be there. The whole lodge, if they're there, making that check presentation, I'll be around there, and I'll stay as long as I need to. There might be a few other surprises, but otherwise it ought to be. Music's going to be good. I think Steve Burrell's going to play for us, and it's going to be good.
You're not doing beach music, are you, boss?
Yes. Yes. Now on Thursday night after the Grand Masters banquet, there's going to be. We're not going to be in there all that long. We're going to go. We're going to go take off our tuxes. We're going to put on some shorts, some flip flops. We're going to come back down there. Everybody who is at annual communication is welcome to come back down there for this. And Hall of Fame legendary Thomas Butch Barnes will be spinning the tunes for us. Butch was with the Band of Oz and Sea Cruise, and he now is a dear friend. He was playing the night Brenda and I met, and
He used to work for my dad's son.
Yeah.
He's an awesome saxophone player as
Absolutely. Oh, I love, and he'll be playing sax at the Grand Masters banquet for us a little bit.
You know him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Butch is also one of my neighbors. He and Susan live down in Calabash, where I have a house, and we're looking forward to having them there. And we want everybody to come up. He's going to be spinning beach tunes, and everybody's welcome. I just hope everybody will come out and have a good time. Be casual that evening.
Be casual. We're just going to be casual. So everybody will check in kind of like they always did, same place and everything?
Yeah, and also I want to say to everybody, we are continuing the Masons Can drive again as well. So bring those cans of food or $10, and let's see what we can do to help folks out.
All right. Let's talk about the amendments.
All right.
Because you got a bunch of them this year. We don't normally have this many. Probably average. I don't know what we average. 6 or 7 of those things?
It's a little more than usual.
It's out of time. Are we running out of time? We just now got to the amendments. What are we talking about?
Got to get the boss out of here on time.
Go. All right, boss. We got them listed here. Let me start going through them. We're not going to talk about some of them. Are just like tidying up language and stuff.
Yeah.
So here's the first one. Blackmer Lodge has proposed that we be able to open on the entered apprentice degree. We had a whole episode on this, and we've talked about it at just about every podcast that we've had. So we've kind of beat this horse to death. But what would you like to say about that?
Well, my job as Grand Master is to, and as is the case with any master of any lodge, I'm looking down there at you, Sean, is to rule and govern with equal regularity.
Yeah.
And I hope that everybody has done their homework on this amendment. I hope that everybody is coming to this amendment with an open mind, and I hope they, if they have any questions about it, they will get them answered. I know I have. And, I think it's going to be up to the craft what they decide to do, but I don't know that I would say either decision would be a mistake, but I will say that William Richardson Davy never attended a lodge where they did business solely on the third degree. And if you don't believe that, you can go to Royal White Hart and read the minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, there will be some who say, oh, Grandmaster, that wasn't fair. You're pushing that amendment. I'm just telling you a fact. The whole reason that thing happened was a very unfortunate situation called the Morgan Affair. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that at that time, those people making decisions for Freemasonry acted in the best interest of Freemasonry. And a lot of the reason right now that people feel like we can't go back and do business on a first degree is because that's not the way we've ever done it. So just get the questions that you've got answered and vote for the good of Masonry. I think it can be a good thing. I think if we don't do it, it'll still be a good thing. I think it's just something everybody's going to have to decide in their own mind and own conscience.
The feedback that we've gotten, the biggest thing that people are confused about is they think that people will be able to remain entered apprentices forever and that they have no incentive to advance. But the rule is not changing in the code that says that you have to advance after 6 months or you have to get an extension. And you can only get, I think, 2 extensions, 1 or 2 extensions, until you are no longer affiliated with the lodge. So it's not true. You cannot remain an entered apprentice forever and just never advance. You still have to advance just like you always did. All right, we beat that.
And we will still follow the code no matter what.
We will follow the code. Okay, so the next one that we were going to talk about is this amendment that would allow a lodge to charge a late fee on unpaid dues. What's that all about?
Well, we had some lodges this year who were a little late getting in their per capita, and we had a little potential remedy for that called a Form 39, which caused a little heartburn across the state, but I got to give it to the district deputy grand masters. They did a phenomenal job of getting that information together and getting it in. We know that finances are a major part of what we do, And we also know that if we don't get the money in, and we don't get the money in on time, we can't pay the bills. So it's very important that we understand our financial needs and that we respond to those needs appropriately. And if we're going to be late, then perhaps the incentive to get it in on time can be helped by the charging of a late fee. But that'll be up for the Grand Lodge to decide.
I think it's you got to be able to pay your bills, no matter what kind of entity, whether it's your household, your business, or the lodge.
Right.
Amendment to proposed to codify the Grand Lodge Committee on Personnel. What's this all about?
We have not had, we've had a practice in place through the Board of General Purposes and the Grand Line for years about reviewing the employees and this sort of thing. This is really a no-brainer amendment, something that we should have been in the code a long time ago, but we're just putting into the code the practice that we've been doing. Works with the Finance Committee for setting for how the salaries and all are set, and just makes the Personnel Committee a codified part of what we do. So I would think that one ought to be a real no-brainer.
All right. How about this allowing the Grand Master to dispense with the reading of the minutes of any lodge communication he closes in ample form? Y'all do it all the time. I've seen you do it for years.
Yes, we've been doing. This is just codifying something that we've been doing. Nobody called me out on it. Well, yes, I think maybe they did one time this year, and I said, "Well, every other Grand Master I've ever seen did this," and we're just codifying something that we've been doing, like you said.
Well, I'm wholeheartedly against it, boss. I'm going to stand up and speak on this. I love hearing the minutes read at Lodge, and I want them read in full, lengthy form.
All the details.
While you're at it, why don't you just let the Blue Lodge Masters do away with the reading of the minutes if you post them?
I'll let you stand up and say that at Grand Lodge and see what happens.
All right, we were going to talk about this group 9 and 10 together. This is the endowed membership stuff and all.
Yeah, the endowed membership matters. I think State College Lodge is trying to help that one along. Yeah, and I think endowments are something that every lodge needs to understand. The key to it is it's got to be set high enough at the beginning that it's going to provide adequate resources in the current day. Because when you die, that money continues to come on to the lodge. But to help the lodge now, you need to set it high enough to where your per capita is being paid. You're able to, the lodge is able to benefit from it now. Because if it's set too low, then your lodge is going to suffer in the present and potentially in the future. So there is a level of it right now. I think it's 21 times whatever your dues are at present, but that's not high enough. And some people will say, "Oh yeah, that's just another expense. That's just another expense." Well, things cost more today than they did when I was a little boy. And they're going to cost more when my grandchildren are born or when the ones I've got right now grow up. Things are going to cost more. So,
and we're shrinking.
Yeah, and our membership is shrinking, and that's part of what we've got to understand. And I'll get to that when you get to the per capita.
All right. Let's jump on down there and do that one. Which one is that? Doesn't matter. Let's talk about the per capita one.
A lot of people are troubled, got a lot of heartburn about the per capita increase. Nobody on this planet was as against an increase in per capita this year than I was. One of the reasons I had the conversations I had with Mike Falkenberry and the foundation, and we worked out some of the things that we were able to do, the foundation was able to help us like they were. But what we didn't know at the time was that certain services from Maury were going to cost us more. Whether we take advantage of those services or not is up to every individual lodge, but they're still the services that are offered to the Grand Lodge. The other side of this is, as you've already alluded to, we are shrinking in membership. We have fewer members now than we did 5 years ago. Y'all found that out trying to budget some money for the Davy Academy some time back, when we all of a sudden we realized, okay, we've got 2,000 less members now than we had when we had the last per capita increase. And not only that, when 50-year members get to 50 years, lodges don't pay that money. So that's lost money. We don't have an expense problem. A lot of people want to say, well, let's just tighten our belt and let's cut the expenses of the Grand Lodge. Yeah, we could do that, and we could provide less services as a result of doing that, and nobody wants that. From where I've been, people like to see the Grand Master come see them. They like to have the awards and ceremonies and certificates and all those kinds of things. But to have that, we need to pay for it. And when you're losing members, when they're dying out, when we're not following up on folks, and they're NPDing on us, or we're NPDing them, every time we do that, that's more money out of our local lodge and out of the Grand Lodge. So, had a lodge recently wanted to NPD 29 people because they thought that they were paying too much money to the Grand Lodge for per capita. I said, how much are your dues? They said $100. I said, so you want to say, let's just round it off, say it was 30. You want to save $600 paid to the Grand Lodge, and at the same time, you want to take $2,400 out of your local coffer. Makes no sense. Why would you want to do that? Get up with those guys, put an end to your NPDs by having relationships with them, focusing on those relationships rather than on membership. If you do that, it'll turn this thing around and we won't be having to talk about that. And by the way, when I was in Washington, I learned that Tennessee is looking at a $10 increase in their per capita. And Virginia is looking at either a $15 or $20 increase. Their per capita is going to be $38 and $48 respectively. And I think ours is, what was it, 20? And we're looking to go to 25? I don't know. I think it's 20, 25. But anyways, far less than our neighbors to the west and to the north.
Yeah. Think it'll pass?
I think it's going to have a tough time. I really think it's going to have a tough time. But I hope that our brethren will make an informed decision about all of this, and we're going to do everything that we can to give them proper information. I hope that no lodge in the state will, and I know this is going to bother some people, but I hope no lodge in the state will bind their voting members to a certain way of anything because the lodge says so. Masons believe in free will, free thought, and the ability to be able for a man to be able to make up his mind based on being a rational thinking human being. And when you hear the logic to some of these things that a lot of times are nothing in the world but emotional, and sometimes the result of some true financial hardship, and we'll have a way to address any true financial hardship that we're experiencing. We'll deal with that. But the main thing we need to do is to be open to making good decisions, good rational decisions, and we're going to be prepared to help people do that when we get to annual communication.
Want to wager on it?
Yeah, I can't bet. The bishop might be watching this, man. You know that.
We're Methodists. We can bet, can't we?
Game's a chance. Bishop Blackman told us a long time ago we couldn't do that. It was 1972.
Well, I hope it passes. I mean, we're TO guys. We're used to paying a lot of money for quality. I heard you talking at Scottish Rite the other day about, it seems like there's an awful lot of folks that want quality, but they don't want to pay for it. And you can't have it both ways. And life is pretty simple. You get what you pay for. And if you're trying to cheap your way out of everything, then you get an inferior product. And as much as I have butted heads with the Grand Secretary's office, Walt, at times, they certainly have my respect, and they're probably the best Grand Secretary's office in the United States.
They are.
And we want to keep all of those things that the Grand Lodge provides us coming.
Yeah.
So you got to pay for it. Got to pay for it. Stuff ain't getting cheaper.
I was having a conversation with somebody who wanted to cut expenses to the Grand Lodge, and I said, well, one way we could do that is to charge a $300 annual charter renewal fee. And, that money could be used to hold annual communication and that sort of thing. Well, that didn't go over very well. People want more for less.
Yep.
But if you want quality, you've got to give your best.
It's Amendment Group 5. Talk about background checks. What's that all about, boss?
Well, that has to do with the process whereby somebody who's coming in by affiliation, it has not been subject to that. Regardless of whether it's affiliation or application for initiation or whatever, everybody needs to pay attention to those background checks. And everybody needs to be guarding the West Gate very well. I don't think we've done that as well as we need to do it. And I can assure you there will be some things that are going to be happening that are going to be speaking to that in the coming week. And we're going to do everything that we can. All of our lodges have to be able to do this. Otherwise, we're not going to be the high quality men in this fraternity that we all know we are supposed to be, and like our grandparents were, and what you used to see. I'm all for inclusion, but I'm also for high quality. Agreed.
Agree 100%. So do you think, we've been talking about this for quite a few years now, this guarding the West Gate, and really the way that I've heard it tied together was we're worried about the amount of guys that we lose, and we think that part of the reason we lose so many guys is because we're getting the wrong guys in the front door. So I know that Larry and Mac did this proposed investigation committee guidelines thing, and
yeah.
And do we feel like we're making inroads in that area? Do we think it's better than it was? Do we know?
I think it's too soon to be able to tell, but I think some of the folks that have been coming in of late have been pretty good folks. I think we've seen some situations this year that we let people in we should not have let in. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be paying the price for that. And we're going to be addressing some of that at annual communication this year with one of those amendments that will require a unanimous proposal to even come to the floor. And I got to figure out how that's going to happen.
Well, you got to pay attention to those background checks. I think it's one of the best things we ever did. I know that we're catching a lot of guys that would have got through before.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, apparently some are still slipping through even when their background checks are poor.
It's happening.
They're not, the investigation committees really aren't following up and whatever. Well, we certainly hope that, it's important. It's the future of our craft, right?
It is.
All right. What have we left off here, boss? You want some kind of last word?
Well, I just a word of great appreciation to everybody across North Carolina. It's been very humbling this year to go into the various places literally from Manio to Murphy and be around everybody. I'm just a country boy from Halifax County, and I never sought this office, but I think the opportunity to serve in it has been a great blessing for me, and if it's been good for anybody, then for goodness sakes tell everybody, and if it hasn't been good for somebody, for goodness sakes tell me, so that I can continue to learn and subdue my passion and improve myself in Masonry, I would be grateful for that. And I'm grateful to y'all for providing this venue for conversation, discussion, and, expression of thought. We have to keep doing that. And if we do that in the context of friendship, morality, and brotherly love, I think we'll ultimately hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servants, enter into the joy of the Lord." And that's what I aim for, both as a Mason and in my vocation. So thank y'all very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, boss. We really appreciate you coming down. Everybody remember the people in Houston in your thoughts and prayers. If you can, go give them some money. I'm going to give mine to, what's the Methodist Relief Fund? UMCOR. UMCOR is where I'm going to give mine. Red Cross, Salvation Army, those people need your donations. Go give them
there'll be an appeal to the Masonic Service Association as well for Masons to do that. I'm sure that's coming, and we'll look at what we can do with that.
Real good. Thank you. Thank you, boss. Thank you for being here. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Masonian. For more information and productions, please visit and like our Facebook page at 357 Productions or 357productions.com. You may also email us at 357productionsteam@gmail.com. Again, that's 357productionsteam@gmail.com. As always, tell people that you love them, and remember, we meet on the level and part on the square.